That's a weird voice. Well, okay, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good too. Yeah, it's been a good day. Pretty awesome. So these interviews, I'm trying to cut them and make them a little bit shorter than usual.
Okay.
So it's like just whatever first pops into your head for the question. And yeah,
Okay. We'll go from
okay,
there.
awesome.
Do I need to introduce myself or anything, or you're already going to have that as part of
Um,
what do you,
well, usually I just write something up, but then sometimes I like take stuff from the video. But yeah, no, just firstly, I guess yeah, introduce yourself, a bio.
Okay. Hi. I'm Colonel Dion Flynn, um, United States Air Force. I've been in some status in the military for over 29 years now. I started off my military career going into the United States Air Force Academy. I graduated in 1995 and have, as I said, been serving in some form or capacity for 29 years. Background and experiences include weapon system testing, legislative affairs, personnel, human resources, um, just various activities and opportunities throughout the Air Force.
That's pretty awesome. That's cool. Um, well, what? And you went to GPS, right?
I did go to GPS. I'm class of 1991.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Um, so what motivated you to serve your country and like how has that decision really affected shaped your life?
So I think a lot of it had to do with my dad. My dad was in the Air Force for 4 years, from 1964 to 1968. He was an air traffic controller. And as a young girl, he used to take me up in the tower with him. And I used to see him doing his job as an air traffic controller and taking care of essentially people, ensuring that they were safe to get in and out of airports, working with the pilots. And just, I think that exposure and a sense of service, as well as um, his just belief in me that anything I put my mind to, that I was capable of. And so I think that's what started me on my path to kind of look for a career that would allow that side of me to come out, both the service, service to our country, obviously, was one of those. And then just something that kind of pushed me from a capability standpoint, and that it wasn't going to be tempered in any way by my gender as to the things that I could accomplish.
Yeah, no, I know I definitely look up to my dad and my mom as well. So I can see how that could just totally be such a good inspiration for someone who's, at that pivotal age. Um, that's awesome. I went into one of those air traffic control things on like a field trip in like
Mm-hmm.
third grade, and I just remember it was pretty cool. So
Yes.
I can see how that'd be pretty persuasive. Um, when you think about your experience in the military, is there like a memorable story or like kind of core memory that just pops into your head?
So, you know, a lot of what, and when I look at, my military service, and I should have even more recently mentioned it, I just came out of command, right? Where I was the mission support group commander there on Dobbins Air Reserve Base, not too far from Chattanooga. And I had about 1,000 people under my command. It is probably the single best, most all consuming job that an assignment that I've ever had in the military. Um, but it stands out heads and shoulders of anything I've done, where um, not only was I asked to accomplish a mission, um, but part of that mission holistically was taking care of the installation as a support group commander, but also in preparing my airmen so that they could deploy in defense missions. So actually signing orders, there was an afternoon where I actually went to my unit and to a person. I shook their hands and I thanked them for their willingness to be sent into harm's way to serve our country. and it was just pretty. It was a pretty impactful kind of thing, and to look into someone's eyes and know that there's some trepidation there, right? But in spite of that, they're still willing to put themselves into these situations. And that was probably very significant for me.
Yeah. I thought like, well, with the other people that I've interviewed, every single time everyone mentions like just the family that you find with having to relate with like all these people like because I think about it in a like I really want to play on their tennis team, on any of the academy's tennis team, and just like the fact that like any one of those players would like there's an expression like I'd take a bullet for you, but it's like it's real. I feel like in that kind of
Mhm.
yeah, that's a lot to especially 1,000 people under your command. Wow, that's a lot. Being like a woman in the military, how has that been? Like, have you felt any different because you're a woman in the military, or have you seen that it's not that big of a deal?
Well, it's just one of many parts of me, right? That I bring to, the diversity of experiences and backgrounds that we bring to our assignments and our jobs. And I fortunately, I felt like I, I could honestly say I never felt like I was kept from doing anything I wanted to do because I'm a woman. Um, you know, or things I was interested in. It was only just recently, that all AFSCs, all specialty codes, career paths were open to women. That only was just recently passed, 2015. Um, and you can double check to make sure I get that date right. But I was doing some research for um, another paper, as we look at women's overall ability to vote and the Equal Opportunity Act, um, that was passed that opened up military service to women, 75 years of that. So as we look at being a woman in the military, for me, I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of other women who have opened those doors and made it possible so that it was less of an issue for me coming in. Um, One of the things, though, that I'm thankful for at this point in my career is that having been a woman, um, and a commander, there was decisions I made that I had a particular situation where I had to work with a young woman who was pregnant and was asking for an exception to policy. Um, and it was very specific, medical related to her pregnancy. And I remember trying to ask some of my colleagues about how they should, just kind of bouncing ideas off of them and what have you. And unfortunately, what I came to realize is I was the only one in that situation who had been pregnant.
Right.
As a mother myself, I have two biological children. They're my husband and I together in our marriage. We have four children, but and I went back to and I thought about my experiences. And as we look at the value that there's a greater appreciation for women's capabilities in their ability and what they bring to the mission of a unit, where you have so many more measures and policies that have changed. In particular, uh, there have been a lot of things that our Secretary of Defense, um, Secretary Austin, has put in place so that we are allowing for pregnancy leave and different ways to retain that talent and that value. And so when you see those things happening, you're better able, at least I felt like I was better able to make an informed decision, um, with some empathy, but also understanding standards, and made sure that I could make good decisions with the background perspective that I came from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that being also having been pregnant, like for you, that would have, yeah, that being the only one too, that I feel like what you said before with just like it's just another part of who you are and like kind of bringing just more perspectives and past experiences. I bet I bet that was really helpful. For the last question, Is there a lesson that you learned in, or like, I guess the most important one or something that you learned in the military that you think civilians and like especially like today's youth should learn?
Probably one of the leading lessons I learned is that you're going to fail. It is going to happen. I could tell you specific stories of my time in the Air Force Academy where to get to the Air Force Academy, I had been a straight A student. I was, athletically gifted, just able to do a lot of things. And at the Air Force Academy, I failed 2 classes. And the first class I failed was because of physics. And it was because I was too much pride and I didn't ask for help when I needed it. And what I offer though is there was that, as well as I went to jump school. If you look at my service dress when I wear it now, I have jump wings on it because I did earn my wings. But hey, you're on. This is my son. Here on.
Nice to meet you.
All right, let me see you. See, bud. And so I have my jump wings now. I earned them, but the first week through jump school, I washed out.
What does that mean?
So I had to accomplish a backwards parachute landing fall. So you go through about 40 hours of ground training before they allow you to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And I got to the very last day of ground school and I didn't complete the backwards parachute landing fall the way my instructors felt like I needed to in order to advance. And so they washed me out. I failed. So I was sent to go and have to do essentially answering phones, right, for the next week. And so I showed up to do that. And one of the sergeants that was conducting the training came to me and says, "Hey, we're starting a whole new class. Are you willing to go through a second week of ground training in order to get your wings?" And I went, "Yes." So as I look at, I did 80 hours of ground training before I could get into a perfectly good airplane and make it through that. But it's what happens when life comes at you with those failures. What do? Right? Do you pick yourself up, take the humble pill that you've just been given, and decide if it's something you want? And you go after it. And you put in twice as much as what everybody else may have had to put in to accomplish the same path. But know that was something that you wanted and not being afraid to go after it and being willing to work for it.
Yeah, that's so inspirational, especially because I'm not doing too good in my classes right now. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go study after this.
All
But
right. Or, find out what your teacher's study hours are. If they've got off
yeah,
for you, find somebody who's an expert in the classes that you're maybe struggling in. It can be, if you've been successful, it can be hard to ask for help. I'm just going to, excuse me. And so when that happens, you got to be willing to know what you need to do in order to accomplish the goals that you're going after.
right. Well, that's actually very awesome advice. I really appreciate that. Um, Thank you so much for meeting with me again. It's a pretty short interview, but I just appreciate it a lot. And it's cool, like you're the first woman that I've interviewed. All the past ones have just been people that I've gotten connected through my dad. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, and as if this is all part of the interview, what have you, if you have other questions truly about, trying to go to one of the service academies, it is exceptionally competitive. Um, as far as the process, because you need both. I mean, is your dad military?
Well, both my parents went to West Point,
Mm-hmm.
except they ended up leaving. They ended up dropping out. So, um, so my dad and my mom have both told me that like, no, it's like you gotta lock in if you want
Yes.
to get in. And yeah, so
Yeah. You've got to decide if this is what you really want to do. Right.
right.
Um, and it is, my daughter's best friend is a freshman right now at the Air Force Academy. Another young lady that I've used to mentor just graduated. So, there are people that we can, if you've got, you know, want to hear from actual folks who have been more recently through it than me, right? I have I have old experiences and, know what it took for me to get through, know that it's a different institution now, it evolves and changes based on, what's going on in the environment. But happy to share my experiences just from the, it's tough. Um, it's not someplace you go because anybody wants to be there but you. You have to want to be there. You're not going to survive. It's too hard. They give you more than you can more than you can handle that challenge, right? And see if you're able to continue to exist under stress and having more than, and learning how to prioritize, right? Finding out what's important, how you get through each day. Um, I played soccer and I ran track when I was at the Air Force Academy. Those are the things that I knew that I needed to help me balance the stress and the struggle of the military and the academic life and the demands that were there.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I'll definitely contact you if I have any other questions.
All right, sounds good. Well, you get to studying tonight. Get back to.
Oh, I will. Don't you worry.
Well, hopefully this was helpful. This is what you needed. Look forward to seeing what you're kind of putting together as far as the podcast, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
You too.